Hey Subhash, good morning. How are you? Yeah, Shish. Can't hear you if you spoke.
Hey Bharath.
Hey, hey, hey.
Hey Subhash. Subhash, I think you're on mute.
We're still gathering. Let's give some more time for people to join.
Hello.
I can hear you, Subhash.
Bharath,
Yep,
Bharath, let's give another 4-5 minutes.
sure.
I hope the people will
Yeah,
be
yeah,
around soon.
yeah, sure, sure. We'll see. It's a Friday, right? So understand.
Hey Xavier, thanks for joining.
Hello there, Ashish. Hello, everyone.
Yeah.
Hey,
I hope Xavier, you have forwarded the invite to your community as well.
I've promoted it, but it appears, pardon me, I'm a bit under the weather. It appears that it's sold out, isn't it?
No.
I was looking on the events page of the Delhi chapter. Let me just double check here. Out of
Oh,
stock, it says.
oh, is it?
Yes.
Out of stock.
What number is the registration?
If it is out of stock, then I hope there will be Macrum's participation, but it's still 4 to 5 members only. I have a registration count of around 76 with me.
I don't think we can register anymore, so I'm not sure.
Let's give another 2 minutes. Let's see.
Sounds good.
Bharath, can you check your teams, please?
Come again, Ashish. Sorry.
Check your teams.
Uh-huh. Um,
I think with the interest of everyone's time, I think we can start off. Let's record the session and see. In the meantime, we'll see how many people will join in. Subhash, go ahead, please.
Yeah, sure, Ashish. Thanks. So, hello everyone. Today we are here for one of very important topic into stakeholder management. So the topic is enhancing business analyst effectiveness through stakeholder management and communication proficiency. Today in today's session we are going to learn, we are going to have knowledge on how an effective stakeholder management can be a great step for delivering a successful project by fostering collaboration, management, expectation with the stakeholder, and creating a clear and confident uh, stakeholder management. So for this, uh, we have Bharath, who is a product manager in Accenture. He has 13 plus years of experience into product development through design thinking, through human centered design and innovation. Currently, he's working on a solution which is integrating business process with technology, and it is he has a rich experience into product management and especially into managing things through stakeholder engagement. So over to Bharat.
yeah, I think thanks a lot for having me. I hope I am audible. Am I?
Yes, yes, Bharat. Yes,
Okay,
Bharat.
and
Yes.
just confirm which screen that you are actually saying. I'm not pretty frequent on Zoom and all. Are you seeing the big screen or small screen? The slide.
It's a small one.
Oh, is it? How about now?
Yes, yes, it is. Good.
Okay, great. So
Yes.
thanks for having me. And I don't need to put too much of the introduction for myself, but since in terms of the discussion topic today, right? So stakeholder management is one of the key areas that most of the business analysts, as a matter of fact, it's not for just business analysts. As well, it's for everyone, right? So but so the focus and the orientation of this discussion and presentation is purely inclined towards business analysis, and the few of the knowledge areas that has been covered by Babuk. So I'm keeping aside of about my introduction, as well as taking up the questions and clarifications on this topic. I will be covering three aspects, right? So a brief overview of what stakeholder management is, and I mean, everybody will get into engaging with the stakeholders, basically, right? The moment people started getting into the crux of the stakeholder management, so how they actually their competency is can be matured over the period of time. What does it take for them to move across from a beginner a beginner in the stakeholder management aspect to an expert or master in that particular space. And specifically, so we are talking from IAB's chapter today, and what reference points do we have from bar book for this particular competency and all, right? So I personally have a mission of enabling 2 million people to succeed in their careers. That's my personal vision, and in order to get there, I keep on sharing my perspectives and thoughts to several people in different forums and platforms. IABA is one among them, and I volunteer myself pretty frequently in few of the NGOs to help people to position themselves who are differently abled people also. That's on the NGO side and all. But overall, I think I have more than 13-14 years of experience, and I'm working as a product manager right now. And the very reason that I say that, so I mean, I can qualify myself as a speaker of this particular session because I enjoy dealing with people and facing challenges, obviously solving problems. Now, that does not mean that, so the more that you talk to people, the more that you engage with people, it is not the problems that you get into. That's not the reason, but it's an opportunity for you to get into that particular space, right? So that's what it is. Let's jump into the, so the overview of it. So simply put, right? So if I have to talk about, so the overall, so what is stakeholder management is? It's nothing but fostering relationships, especially when you are involved in parties to ensure the success of the project that you are working together. Basically, when I say that particular thing, project is a time bounded effort or endeavor to fulfill or achieve a set of goals that all the team members, if not just you, to work towards on that particular aspect, right? So like I said, I've been in the industry last 14 years and all. I've been into IT altogether. I've seen in the projects, and I have grown organically to the product management role today. Started as a business analyst, and then senior business analyst, principal business analyst, lead business analyst, BM manager, and now I'm into a product manager role right now. So what I observed across throughout these journeys is nothing but the different type of stakeholders that we encounter with. So it becomes extremely difficult for us to manage the relationships with the different people without practically bucketing them into different categories. So the first and foremost thing, so in a project context, right, are the governance stakeholders. When I speak about that particular thing, right, so a governance stakeholder is anyone who is extremely interested in the successful outcome of the project. These are the people who are very much interested and inclined towards the successful execution of the project, in terms of could be in terms of the budget, could be in terms of the scope of the effort, could be in terms of the timelines of the overall outcomes that you are looking into. So so long story short, governance stakeholders are the CEO or the C-level executive people who actively monitor the health of the project and throw themselves into the details whenever they see any risk of risk in the direction of the project, basically. So that's the first thing. I mean, these people will keep on funneling the information to the business stakeholders. So from that particular stage, let's say that imagine yourself as a CEO of the company, who is hoping to so improve the profitability of your organization, right? So that's the goal that they really want to put up. So that particular goal will be translated to the business stakeholders who are working into different departments, basically. So now these business stakeholders are the people from a project context, or from a project point of view, right? So these are the people who a business analyst will continuously be in touch with, so understanding what their requirements are, expectations are, making sure that they are well informed about everything, whatever is happening. They're well consulted about making any decisions or the directions relevant to the project, etc., etc., etc. So more or less, so business analyst will work very closely with the business stakeholders on a transactional basis, as well as on a strategic levels and all. So coming to the project stakeholders, right, like like we can't practically eliminate the significance and or importance of the colleagues who are working along with us to codify the requirements. That is nothing but the project team members, right? So it could be your scrum master, it could be your project manager, it could be your architects, it could be your development team, it could be your quality folks, it could be your design individuals, anybody whoever is involved in the execution of your project, that is translating the business requirements into a workable solution, falls under the category of a project stakeholders. Now, I mean, like I said, going back to the fundamental definition, right? So fostering the relationships with the people who are involved in the project success, right? So a business analyst act as a bridge between both the ends, on the governance side as well as the project stakeholders side, and make sure that the emotions, interests, and expectations are properly channelized throughout the process and all. Uh, Overall, so we have spoken a lot on this particular thing. So what does it entice for a business analyst, right? So we are the client facing people. We are expected to understand the interests of the business stakeholders. So business stakeholders always says that, okay, this I want this requirement to be completed yesterday, not today, basically. So you take the same requirement to your development team, and they will say that, hey, I definitely need 1 week time for this particular. And practically, this is impossible for us to complete it in a day or two. Forget about yesterday. Basically, that's not possible, right? So it is important for a business analyst to understand the interests of both the sides and try to act as the devil's advocate on both sides of the story, and try to arrive to a logical conclusion which is convincing as well as appealing to on the both the sides and all, right? So it takes a lot of emotional tale that people have to look into, and from a business analyst point of view, you have to act in the best interest of both the sides. You cannot practically see on a single-sided vested interest for sure. So that is not something that you'll learn by hearing what I have to say today, or not. You can't practically so learn by reading something on this. This is a trait that you personally have to practice over and over again, and master that particular art of managing things on the net side. So next thing, right? So I mean, you have to make sure understand a business analyst, right? You have to understand that so your engagement or your working structure will definitely have a positive or negative impact or neutral impact on the overall conduct of the project, basically, right? So whenever that you talk about the consequences, right, or the impact, right, it could be positive, negative, or neutral. Positive in the sense that it is working for the in a for towards the advantage of the overall effort that you're putting. Negative is that is nothing is it is counterproductive for you. So you have to be sure anything and everything that you are doing, is it influencing towards the positive outcome of your project effort or not, is something that a business analyst is to judge on that particular aspect and all. And the last but not least is nothing but so while the business analyst may manage the groundwork from the stakeholders point of view, the planning or the planning and executing for the stakeholder management actually starts before the project actually starts, before the hand, basically, right? So in order for you to, it all starts with understanding what kind of stakeholders that you are actually dealing with, so what is the what level of influence versus challenge, so on and so forth. You kind of try to come to a guesstimated approach on that particular thing and start looking out so what and how that you actually can move on. Now, before I'm moving forward on this, so any questions or any perspectives that people would like to add on this, happy to hear what you have to say on this. All right. So right. So we have seen in the previous slide, so how the stakeholder management from the overview point of view, but that takes us to the next step, saying that it is important for us to understand the very essential traits that a business analyst, or as a matter of fact any person, must possess, and the knowledge that they require to have gather, so that they actually can become efficient in the business analysis, leveraging the stakeholder management competency, right? So, I mean, obviously, as human beings, we expect others to respect us, basically, right? So one of the most important things that I have seen and observed and experienced also, oftentimes, so a lot of business analysts get into, offensive or defensive mode for the feedback or the inputs that people are giving, actually. While processing those inputs or the feedback provided by the people, it is extremely important for anyone to respect the opinions of others and their inputs, and so without factoring that kind of element, more likely that you respond in a way that is that will work in a negative consequences for the purpose that you are actually talking up, right? So, and people will definitely appreciate people who are actually taking up ownership from that on anything, basically, right? So, I mean, we all are human beings, and we all are affected with the kind of inputs or the feedback that we receive from people, right? So, but what is important that we need to a good business analyst will always embrace the feedbacks that provided by the people. It could be bad, or it could be good, or it could be neutral, whatever the case may be. So you should be able to develop the ability to embrace the feedbacks or the inputs provided by your team members, be it in closed circuit team members or extended team members. You have to develop that ability to do that. Next thing is, I mean, it is extremely important, to demonstrate empathy in every interaction that you are having with the stakeholders collectively. So with these personal traits, and if you develop a solid understanding about your project context, and you with an insight about the organizational structure, and I mean, you may undermine the importance of an organizational structure, but most importantly, if you don't understand the organizational structure, and it is more likely that you may fail to understand the influences that different stakeholders may have over the outcomes or the decisions of the people, right? So gaining a decent understanding about the organizational structure plays a critical role in managing the stakeholders and all. So not I mean, everybody likes gossip, right? So, and so I mean, it is very encouraging and ideal to state that our organization is politically free from politics, basically. While it is an idealistic scenario, I mean, less likely that I hear from people saying that there are no politics which are happening in our project in the company. I'm not saying this is they are good, right? So they are good in some way, and they are bad in that way. So let's not be judgmental. Having a politics in a project context is good or bad, or should I start understanding? I don't want to get into that particular mess. Yeah, yes and no, on this thing, right? So but if you have a knack for detail on so how the influence versus interest activities are playing or spanning around the organizational canvas or the project canvas, you will have a high chances of maintaining your own reputation, as well as you're managing the relationships with your stakeholders in a meaningful manner. Collectively, all these things, right? So with if you possess the traits that I have listed over here, and if you carry the amount of knowledge that I'm talking about, I mean, obviously, by no means this is an exhaustive list and all, but these are the guided most important and most meaningful things that I can put it over here. all these things will help you to align the goals of the people and the individuals towards the overall outcome of the project and all, and help you to take inclusive decisions by making sure that so everyone is being consulted properly, and sometimes and most of the times you'll be in a position to avoid conflicts at times in the cases. Yeah, before moving on, any questions or thoughts on this? Ashish, how are we doing on time? Are we okay with this space?
Yes, Bharat, perfectly
Okay.
fine. And I would recommend everyone, please speak up if you have any questions. It is not with respect to the questions also, but if you want to share your own perspective, feel free to jump in anytime.
Yeah. Awesome. So then I mean, everybody is actually wondering, right? So most of the people that I talk to these days, so hey, ChatGPT is coming up, is it going to take out my job, basically, so on and so forth, basically, right? So while it is true in every aspect, and I saw, ChatGPT is actually doing a lot of disruption in most of the industries and all, it is not going to replace business analyst in every way, basically, right? You see the illustration on the right side of the page, so problem solver actually is meeting the problems. That I don't, by any means, I don't mean that the business analyst is actually talking to people is itself is a problem. That is not the mean that I'm saying. But so at one point of time you have to, it is extremely important for us to apply our sensible understanding about, what are the positive and negative influences that the people are actually working or reacting or responding into the other dimension, right? Which is actually triggering the undesired behavior, and your ability to clarify, provide the right clarifications to the people in an appropriate manner also plays a critical role, right? So I mean that practically can't be done and automated by any means. And I mean, most of the times I personally have seen people actually challenging or getting confused with so what they want versus what they need, basically. Business analyst, so with your ability to discriminate between what is the need versus what is the want, and how you actually can enable it, is not that sometimes you need to help your stakeholders to realize it by themselves rather than you telling them that is something it is, right? So if you say that this is not something that you wouldn't require for this particular thing, that's an opinion, basically. But if you have start putting up the questions in a way that your stakeholders actually are realizing, saying that hey, that's an interesting thought, I never thought things from that particular dimension, looks like it is not something that I'm looking for right now. So, help them to realize that particular dimension, and you'll be just fine. So, and this is all that it is required. And as a stakeholder, from a stakeholder management competency point of view, and you can definitely relate what you have seen in the previous slide and all. So next, right? So, I mean, this is the housekeeping stuff that I have done so far. But so you may ask me a question saying that Bharath, I know, I mean, I'm a rookie in this particular space. I don't know what I have to do. So I just got into this particular space right now, and I do not know how to improve my stakeholder management skills. On the other side, few people will definitely say, I'm in this particular space over the last decade, and I have seen people growing their hair to gray, basically, and practically I can't I have witnessed people of different interests, different aspirations, different challenges, but still I'm still struggling to claim myself as a master in stakeholder management competency, basically. These are certain guardrails that I have put together, and what does it take for you to move from one component to another component? That means you are starting today as a basic skill competency in stakeholder management, and you really want to move towards intermediate stage and all. And what is it that you will have to do, right? So from a how many people in this particular group are recent entrants into the business analysis space? Can they raise their hands, please? Okay, I see one. Okay. People who are experts in business analysis, that is, demonstrated over at least 5 years and above, right? Can you give your thumbs up? I saw two people who have just got into business analysis, and I would like to see the thumbs up. Ashish, I'm sure you'll give your thumbs up double. Okay. Great. So yeah, I mean, looks like we have a mix of both, right? But nevertheless, I will say it this way, basically, in case if you are able, from a stakeholder competency point of view, your ability to identify the stakeholder relationships and the needs, realize what their needs and intents are, so that you actually can coordinate with those particular stakeholders on a day-to-day basis to understand more about their interests and requirements. That puts you into a basic stage and all. In order for you to claim yourself as a basic competency maturity level from a stakeholder point of view, you should have a reasonable understanding about, reasonable understanding about, there's different types of the stakeholder communication techniques, so that means that, you need to realize that, okay, so I need this particular question to be clarified, or I need this kind of information to be sought from this particular people. Which channel of communication, for example, is ideal for me to get that particular thing from that particular stakeholder, right? So that level of understanding or knowledge is required for you, right? So now, what abilities will prove yourself or make you qualified to be called on this particular stage, right? So your ability to identify the needs, interests, and aspirations of the people, of the stakeholder who are associated with the project, is something that helps you to be there. And your ability to respond to the queries, right? So obviously a business analyst cannot claim themselves as a BA without understanding a bit of their project and its context. So you should be able to understand, have a reasonable amount of knowledge, and start applying that particular knowledge to clarify the questions or provide certain insights. Whatever that you may carry puts you over there. Now, from basic to intermediate level, right? So you should people must start seeing you as a trusted person, basically, in the sense that, okay, I mean, imagine yourself as a business analyst, and you have another BA working in your project along with the same set of stakeholders and all. That's where people will start saying that, should I go to Bharath or should I go to other person, so some Sarath, right? So I mean, if you establish yourself saying that, okay, if your stakeholders are choosing to talk to you more over the other person, that means that you have established a certain amount of trust factor on your stakeholders to say that, okay, they'll come to you and talk to you for gathering any questions or the clarifications that they may need on this particular thing. In order for you to get there, you definitely, yeah, Subhash, you have a question?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But just with this context, so when we talk about competency, right,
Mm.
and such kind of metrics, so uh, how do you see when you are communicating with the stakeholder which is outside, your region? You understand the Indian people, right? You understand the US people, right?
Mm.
So what things is there in terms of, variation or differentiation when you communicate with these stakeholders in terms of reason wise? Can you put some points, something in terms of uh, challenges and how to overcome it?
So yeah, sure. That's a good question that you can put up, Subhash. What I would put on this particular thing, right? So the aspect that you brought into the conversation right now is the cultural alignment, basically, right? So cultural differences will be there, and definitely it is important for you to understand the how the cultural aspects is actually influencing your project outcomes, as well as how it is actually affecting your channels of communication, etc., etc. So those all aspects that I have spoken about, the organizational structure in the previous slides, if you can relate it over there, and your ability to understand the nitty-gritties of each of these particular aspects, and your ability to understand the level of involvement as well as the level of details that the individual stakeholders. I mean, since you have taken the examples of Indian versus Americans, right? So I mean, if the Indian stakeholder is interested to get into the details, deep granular details of the overall artifacts that you are talking about, that particular thing, whereas your American stakeholders are not very keen about the granularity of the information that you're looking, but they will satisfy themselves with a high level information or overview of what is happening on that particular thing. It depends. So I mean, I wouldn't put myself into this particular aspect in terms of the cultural aspects, while they play a critical role on that particular thing. But what is more important that I would put on this context is, so what are their expectations? So stakeholder management happens only through collaboration and communication. When you are collaborating, communicating with them, what are the channels of communication, that the collaboration that they are expecting, for what level of details that they are hoping you to provide, what is the format or the structure that they are hoping to see it from you, or what level of insights or information that they are expecting. Are they actually challenging the integrity of the information that you are actually looking after, or are they actually trying to be more cooperative with you in order to get whatever that you really have to answer? I think these are the things which changes pretty dynamic from time to time, context to context, caveat to caveat. But that's a valid perspective that you brought. I hope I answered your question. Do you?
Yes, yes. Just one more added questions to
Sure.
this particular context. So when you create a matrix, let's say if you're creating a matrix and you have 10 stakeholder in Indian context,
Mm.
will that similar matrix will work for the person sitting into stakeholder sitting into Australian region or something like European region?
Okay, so I mean, I wouldn't create the stakeholder matrix only for the region wise and all, but I would definitely create the stakeholder matrix depending upon their. We'll see that. Let me park that particular question in the subsequent slides. Down 2 slides after this, I think we have the detail. So let me park it. Can I?
Sure, sure, sure.
Yeah.
Please.
All right. So yeah. So yeah, I mean, if from the previous stage of, so from basic to intermediate, if you really want to pivot from there to here, right, you should have develop the ability to mapping the stakeholder different roles, right? So different stakeholders will have different roles, and their relationship with the organization will vary, and their impact on the project work as well as the organizational aspect will definitely vary. And also, you should possess that particular knowledge. Those techniques is something that you should be aware of if you want to move from basic to intermediate. At the same time, you should have different strategies that to engage with different stakeholders and time. You do not need to create or define any stakeholders, but you should have an deep level understanding of, so what are the different types of strategies that exist to manage these stakeholders and all. Now, like I mentioned that, I mean, people will start seeing you most as a POC to represent their interest and communicate what they really have to. And the communication that you are going to have with those people, and the discussions that you are having, so you'll see a lot of maturity in terms of, what your understandability or their understandability or their receptibility of how the discussions are aligned towards the project goal or the overall purpose that you're looking into. Moving towards advanced stage, right? So I mean, this is the stage that you go beyond on, talking to the stakeholders. This is the time that you will start thinking about, how can I actually engage these stakeholders to a more meaningful aspect and all. That means that, so let's say that, okay, let's say myself and Subhash both are two business analysts, and while Subhash is able to, and we both are actually gathering the requirements from the stakeholders from the same module, basically, right? So let's say sign in module, okay, and the same stakeholder is there, Ashish, basically, right? So if Subhash is able to complete gathering the requirements in 2 days time, and if I'm able to complete the requirements gathering in 10 days time, so that is where, so I can definitely mean to say that, he is more efficient than me. Subhash is more efficient than me. Reason, because he know how to engage the stakeholders, what level of details that I can get into, what level of information that I need to extract, what is the logical structure that I have to go into, so in what way that I can negotiate, what are the areas that I have to stop, etc., etc. This is not possible for Subhash without he understanding the power versus interest and impact of the stakeholders over the project expectations. And he practically cannot navigate the challenge like a James Bond, right? So we all watch James Bond movies. The one thing that happens, no matter whichever situation that you put in James Bond, he will figure out a way to get out alive out of that particular situation. Similarly, Subhash is pretty confident to navigate how to negotiate and resolve the conflicts to arrive at a meaningful conclusions from the stakeholders' point of view. So, so those are the knowledge areas that you need to equip yourself to pivot from intermediate to advanced stage and all. But what abilities that you have to look into, it will not happen pretty dynamically, right? So there is no nobody is a Harry Potter with a magic wand in their hand. Basically, things will not be solved just like abracadabra. Definitely, you do. If you need to have the ability to investigate into the problems and proactively start addressing the issues before they actually occur. Basically, that is one ability that people will look into and appreciate from yourself. At the same time, I mean, it's not just, so you does not refine yourself or limit yourself from managing a single stakeholder. You start understanding about, so what are the complexities of managing the different stakeholders, and then when compared to the different positions that they are playing among the organizational structure, and so try to start prioritizing things which often of the times are unspoken by the people. From advanced stage to the expert stage, right? This is the space where you have to develop the ability to, start creating business for your organization, in a sense that, so let's say there is a big organization, large organization, right? So your ability to create a strategic roadmap for your stakeholders and show them the logical progressive paths in terms of the project level in the conversations, as well as tactical negotiations, which may potentially affect both positive and negative dimension of your project outcomes, and try to manage the issues which are at a escalated and escalated level, as well as, which may have a potentially inverse or negative impact on the overall project. And in order to get there, right, so you should be able to understand, so you should have a deep understanding about the best practices of managing the different types of stakeholders. So when I say different type of stakeholders, you practically, I'm not talking about the governance, project, business and project level stakeholders. Practically, if you categorize people into different categories, right? Few people are very challenging in nature, few people are very much cooperative in nature, few people are very accommodative in nature, few people are very cooperative, etc., etc., right? So understand the personal orientation of the people from their psychological aspects, and what works and what doesn't work with in different types of projects. That is the best practices knowledge that you are expected to carry. And your ability to assess the stakeholder relationships and prioritize them based on the different techniques is also will be very much appreciated and all. And last but not least, so I mean, it's not just a negotiation at a single individual project. You will start talking and thinking at a program level consequences. So you should have a detailed understanding about, the different types of the negotiations and the skills which are essential for you to handle those kind of problems or the situations and all. from that particular stage, right, then from a abilities point of view, right, so you will have you'll start developing the stakeholder roadmap aspect in terms of the organizational vision or the purpose. When I say that particular thing, what is the overall goal that you're trying to achieve or accommodate over the next 5 years or 2 years or 3 years, whatever the time frame may be, what level of engagement that you will have to have, so show them that kind of roadmap and provide that level of visibility and predictability to your stakeholders, be it on your organizational side, be it on your customer side, basically, so that plays a critical role. And your ability to lead and manage the discussions by power play people, so this chief executive level stakeholders plays a critical role over here. And last but not least, so everybody likes a person who actually can solve a problem, basically, right? Are you that one person who actually is solving a problem for your stakeholder is also one thing which is pretty much important. uh, Next thing is nothing but in terms of so master, from expert stage to the master stage, you should possess a you should be able to process and consolidate the information of the different stakeholder management strategies, and be equipped with a lot of best practices that involves engaging with the stakeholders at a deal winning level, basically, right? So from that particular point of view, then you should be able to establish, so it is the difference between an expert and master is a very slim line and all, but while the expert level proficiency is limited to the program and enterprise level, this is master level proficiency influences enterprise as well as the industry level aspects and all. Now, I really want to do a time check on this. Ashish, how are we doing? How much time that we have right now? Can I take any questions or move forward? Okay, so yeah, so from other aspect, right? So let me 1 second. So now I would really want to move ahead from the stakeholders to the project engagement level. So we all know that we all are dealing with the project level activities and all. So each project will have different phases and all. Now let's not bring into the agile concept over here, and I'm not talking limited to waterfall either over here. No matter be it waterfall or agile methodology, you will still do certain type of research before the project is actually started, and you'll still take up certain type of initiation planning activities, so all from the business analysis aspect, right? So etc etc. How would you actually, what kind of strategies that you actually can take up at each level whenever that you are actually facing certain type of challenges with your stakeholders, so that's what it is. If you start seeing, so this is an indication, indicative metrics that I put over here. Let's say that I mean, Subhash, if you start referring on thinking about the problem that you talk about, right? So let's say 3 of your stakeholders are Indian and 3 of your stakeholders are non-Indians, overseas, and all. You start putting up this particular thing, and quantitatively you start mentioning, so what is the risk element of not talking to this particular stakeholder? Will it be high, low, or medium? And what is the level of influence that they will have? When I say influence over the project, it means that to what extent that they will be able to influence the decisions of the project level, and what is the level of interest that they will be having in the project. That means how frequently and how regularly they engage and discuss with us to collaborate with the stakeholders. You put up these particular metrics irrespective of their nationality or the geography, and start plotting the information about different stages, initiation, planning. And the reason that I did not put the prior research over here is nothing but that is still individual happening at your personal level, not happening at a project level, basically, right? So so what is the you start putting up this information over here, so is this person responsible for this particular type of activity at the initiation stage, and is this person to be consulted in this particular planning stage, so on and so forth. I kind of plotted this particular information over here, and you can take reference of this information in any of the type of project challenges that you are facing going forward and all. And in order to get here, right, so power versus influence and interest versus aspect and all, there are a couple of metrics that has been which are very popularly adopted and widely practiced. So you can actually leverage these kind of grids that we can actually get here, right? So any questions on this, Subhash? I hope I answered your question. I hope you have some reference point on this. Any thoughts or perspectives?
No, Bharat, looks perfect. I mean, it is just based on experience we can, draw the
Yeah.
framework and then move ahead, right?
Yeah. I translated my experience into this particular matrix. I think you can leverage it.
Right, right.
All right. So most important, right? So one of the critical aspect of stakeholder management is, keep on listening. You have to keep on listening to them, ask questions consistently, show them that you are empathetic and you are considering their inputs or the feedbacks. Keep on asking the questions. So the questions that I put across: how satisfied, let's say that if I ask a question to Subhash saying that, Subhash, how satisfied are you with the communications that we had this morning? So how confident are you that the communications between you and me and the project teams are actually working as per your expectations or not? How confident are you that the issues are identified and handled well? Basically, these kind of questions will definitely help you to get the pulse of how the people are actually feeling and sensing about your involvement or about your contribution and all. It actually acts as a prescription for the or diagnostic test for the prescription that you really want to prescribe for yourself to improve your stakeholder management skills and all. I know this is something I'll show you some simulations about this, but before going there, any questions so far? Go
Hi,
ahead.
Bharat Kishore this way.
Hey, Kishore. Hi.
Yeah, yeah, Bharat. So I have a question. Like as we discussed that during the stakeholder management and collaboration, we are dealing with different level of stakeholders having different level of authority, different level of influence. So there is a very high chance that conflict occurs between the stakeholder when we are having a
Mm,
discussion with them. So what strategies do you think, from a
yeah.
BA perspective, you know think of or can implement to avoid those conflict and come to
Mm,
a conclusion?
mm, yeah. So, I mean, can I take three different scenarios for the same thing and explain that for you, Kishore?
Yeah, sure. Within the time, if the time permits you, please, if you can
Yeah. I mean,
outline
I
that.
know this question will come up, so I'm prepared. So, so I created three scenarios basically. Okay. So, first scenario is a functionality trade-off in the sense that, so there are two stakeholders in your project modules, and they both of them want to prioritize their requirements for in the upcoming sprint, but you can only accommodate one. Is this a conflict according to you, Kishore?
Yeah,
Potential candidate for a conflict, right? So how will you assess this particular thing, right? So then go back to the same metrics that I have created and imagine, but because we are talking about, it is in the planning stage and all, and you need to assess, so, okay, what is the risk of ignoring the expectation of this particular one person's is medium, let's say, and his interest on the project is pretty low, but his influence over the project is pretty medium. So you make him responsible. One thing, okay. First thing, understand this particular thing. Let's park this information. And another stakeholder's risk is pretty high, and his influence over the project is also pretty high, and his interest is also is pretty high over the project. You make him responsible. That means, both the cases you actually are making them responsible, and try to with that particular thing, you have to as a business analyst, in a scenario where you have to make those people to determine that only one is possible, not the other thing is possible for that particular aspect and all. It is ideal for you to create a detailed document of the advantages and disadvantages of including both the individual functionalities at a single time, and compare and contrast that particular feature level information with the other items in your backlog, sprint backlog, right? and make them decide on that particular aspect and all that you actually can do is, prepare a business case with the impact versus analysis of the individual, both of those features with other features on that particular thing, and let them decide on that particular aspect which one that you really want to get on that particular aspect, right? So most of the times what happens is, you will start involving, one level above those people. Let's say Ashish and myself are those two individuals working about it. So you will set up a meeting. You'll do this particular detailed analysis, document them, and set up a meeting between myself, Ashish, and my boss and Ashish boss, include them appropriately. Provide a walkthrough of this particular thing. Be sure to include and involve your Scrum Master also, and let them to decide on that particular thing. Make sure that in order for you to avoid any kind of cross conversations or the demanding situations over that particular call, let them know that okay, I'll drop this particular thing. Now we have discussed and explained, evaluated everything and all. I will give you 1 day time on this particular thing. You please have a discussion. Let me drop out of this particular conversation. Let them decide and make them to respond it back to you over the email. So that way, have you actually avoided and eliminated the potential possibility of getting into a conflict where you end up in getting into a situation that you can't solve? This works, Kishore, according to you?
Yeah, sounds good.
Great. Second scenario. I mean, the second scenario that I really want to love to talk on is, the functionality ownership debate. That means that, okay, I mean, there is a single functionality. So, and none of the function owners actually are trying to own up, which is where, so business analyst becomes a BA will not be a business analyst anymore. He will be a blame attractor on a literal data. So in a scenario like that, where your stakeholders do not have a clear understanding about the technical configurations of that particular aspect, and you need to clearly establish ownership among those particular people. Same thing, go back to the similar kind of scenario and start looking into that particular thing and identify who needs to be consulted and who needs to be responsible and who needs to be informed on that particular aspect, and arrive into this metrics and leverage the different kind of approaches. So understand this fact: you can't practically solve any stakeholder issues or the concerns in a single discussion with a single technique. You need to leverage different methods of collaboration and communication, and leverage timing to the best advantage of your own approach and all. That is something that how much time that we have? Quick time check. Okay, we have 3 minutes. Okay. So that's another thing that we can leverage. Same approach will also goes on this delivery slippage is also the same thing, so you need to go back to this particular thing. Trust me, this is something that I'm relying very heavily over the last several years, and it is working for me probably good. So yeah, so from the now that we have discussed about all this particular thing, right? So you may really want to go back and start looking into, you are so fascinated with stakeholder management. These are the challenges that I really want to face on, and I don't want to give away my job with ChatGPT, and I really want to master my stakeholder management competencies on the net. But what next? How can you reference this some of this information in Barbook? Basically, there are 4 major topics that you actually can refer, and so business analysis key concepts actually introduces the key concepts of business analysis. Most of it, whatever that I have covered in this conversation, and the different types of the stakeholders involved in this particular project. While the 3 types of stakeholders that I mentioned in this examination is more practical in nature and all, Barbook speaks a lot more types of stakeholders at a more granular level. So obviously you'll get more than what I actually spoke right now over there. I encourage you to read this particular topic if you have access to that, and if you're not yet a member of IABA, probably you can do that. Ashish can definitely help you out on that, or someone in the group. So second thing is on the business analysis planning and monitoring, right? So like I mentioned, everything can be addressed with a proper plan. You may you may not plan to fail, but you definitely cannot fail to plan. So business analysis planning and monitoring definitely explains how efficiently that you can plan and articulate the business analysis activities in a logical manner, so that it will your activities and efforts are aligned with the stakeholder interests and expectations. And chapter 4, illustration and collaboration, so a significant amount of our time is burnt with talking to people and to understand what their requirements are and satisfy their specific needs. And also this particular topic in chapter 4 will set the tone to manage the stakeholder collaboration and throughout the process. Basically, when I say process, in the business analysis process and all. Chapter 10 is nothing but the underlying competencies of business analysis, and stakeholder management being one among them. It details a lot of key activities and principal elements and the different type of personas and stakeholder management strategies that you actually can take up. With that, I think those are the things that I do have. Any questions, I'll be happy to take in case if time permits. Ashish, we are already on top of the hour right now. Can we take a few questions?
I think if anyone has any questions, it will be good if they can speak up now. But I think it's already time is up. It's beyond 12, I guess. If
Yeah,
anyone
right.
has any questions, just feel free to put in, and we'll take it offline. Or if it is too short, then we can discuss here as well.
Hey Ashish, this is Vaibhav, and thanks a lot, Bharath. That was really great presentation, uh, and a lot of things I can relate, which is directly related to the work which is coming up, and the examples or the case studies which you've shown are also kind of sync with what situations we have been encountered. Like for example, the debate of stakeholders and. Uh, So that's very relatable. And I just want to point out that in the IIBA site, they have added a stakeholder analysis. If you go to the Knowledge Up, then there are a lot of videos and the content which they have added for stakeholder analysis. And that can also help. And see, the presentation was really good. So thanks a lot for this enriching session. Thank you. Very agree.
I'm glad that you liked it. Thanks.
All right.
All
Thank you so
right.
much, Bharat, for inspiring us and talking about the stakeholder management that obviously the business analyst will be doing on the daily basis. Thank you so much. And if anybody has any questions, feel free to drop an email to the email ID which I'm just putting on the chat. We will be able to, we will be happy to help you with the answers. All right.
Thanks, Ashish, for setting
Thank
this up,
you.
and
Thank you,
I enjoyed
everyone.
talking to you all.
Thank
Good day.
you.
Bye.
Bye bye.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone. Bye bye.